Johnny here for Johnny's Car Care and Reviews, here to talk to you about major, huge Ford changes coming to Ford based on what was just decided. So Ford is going down the road of Toyota. That means less EVs, less focus and money spent on EVs, and more focus spent on making everything hybrid. So what's our big news story that sets this off tonight, folks? I'll tell you. Let's start flipping through the images that we've got for tonight. The big news story behind this is, well, Ford essentially closing a plant for 2 years over in Oakville. So it's the Oakville assembly plant. And well, it really sucks. I wish I wasn't reporting this, but Ford Edge production continuation wasn't possible, report says. And not only is it not possible, that factory is going to be closed down for about 2 more years than expected because the Ford Explorer EV that was going to be getting built there in 2025 after a retooling, production was basically stopping on the Ford Ranger essentially now, very soon, in April. And what was going to be going down? They're going to tool the factory until 2025 and start building the Ford Explorer EV. But Ford's CEO announced that their full head-on towards electrification was getting slowed down. That the market has spoken. There's less demand for fully electric vehicles than expected. And that the result is Ford can't spend money and incredible production costs on producing something that isn't going to sell. Ford now knows that what sells is affordable electric vehicles. They saw it with the Mach-E. It's pretty obvious. They lowered the price of the Mach-E roughly 7 or 8 weeks ago. They reduced the price by $5,000 and are paying to offer clients 0.99% interest on a lease or 3.99% interest on a purchase. And sales of the Mach-E went through the roof. We sold roughly 10 months of Mach-E production, in almost all of it within 4 weeks. Now things are slowing down a little as there's much less selection, but we're almost all sold out of the 2023 Ford Mach-E's, almost completely sold out of the Select model. As a dealership, we went from 106 Mach-E's available to right now about 12 because we've bought about 15 from other dealers over the course of the last 3-4 weeks. So Ford knows that you have to have the right price point on a Mach-E. So Jim Farley is pulling back those plans for expensive electric vehicles. And the result, though, the big news story for tonight, one of them, is that Ford production continuation not possible. The Oakville assembly plant will not be producing vehicles until 2027, which is when they're going to start producing the Ford Explorer EV, which is really too bad. So this goes back to the fall of 2022, where the Ford and the Canadian Union Unifor reached a new contract agreement that stipulated that they'd be making an electric vehicle. Turned out is going to be the Ford Explorer EV. Instead of currently, they make the Ford Edge, which has been unbelievably reliable, one of Ford's best products, and the Lincoln Nautilus. Both have been very top-notch. Nautilus production has moved to China, and the Ford Edge is just gone. This is going to end later this month, in the month of April. And we're not going to have anything getting produced there until sometime in 2027. So this is really unfortunate. Now, why is this? And this, if you're watching this as a live, you'll know we talked about this in episode 1 about CAFE rules. Now, manufacturers have to play it safe. They live and die by government decisions. So are they going to directly attack the governments and turn people against them and get people upset with their own governments? No. They often need their assistance for, building new factories, having these major mega projects, whether it's a new factory in Canada or Blue Oval City in the United States. Governments help out. They pitch in because, creating 11,000 jobs is a pretty big deal for governments. Remember, they They since after during World War II, they started charging income tax. So they're making money off your work. They want you working in good jobs. Now, what said in very political terms that doesn't blame anyone, the reason for not having that factory continue to make Ford Edges, which are extremely reliable, they're fantastic vehicles. They win reliability awards. It's one of Ford's best vehicle and has been for over a decade now. Quote, this is the reason that they're giving for not being able to continue to make the Ford Edge. Quote, we value our Canadian teammates and appreciate that this delay will have an impact on this excellent team. Ford CEO Jim Farley added, we are fully committed to manufacturing in Canada and believe this decision will help us build a profitable growing business for the long term. However, what's the reasoning given? This is going to be interesting. They word it really well here. If I can get to it, it won't be long. There's your little, sorry, you're having trouble seeing that all, folks. I'll zoom in once we get to the correct quote here. Going in the wrong direction, so nothing new. My problems with a bit of with the technology. So Ford is saying, however, that this delay, this factory not being completely closed down, they're going to retool for essentially the 2 years, allows us, quote, to improve vehicle quality and benefit our customers by leveraging emerging battery and other technology. They are saying that this extra time will help make the product more reliable, which there's a lot of truth to that. You know, if you were watching since episode 1 during the live and not watching this as a cut up episode, you know that we talked about, Toyota's process for manufacturing, how they spend a lot of time tooling and perfecting the creation, the assembly process of the vehicles before hitting the switch and saying, okay, boys, we're live. Let's pump these out. And they start pumping them out. They don't pump them out at first. They trickle out. But supply, here's the reasoning why. They're politically safe, not blaming anyone, not getting any people upset against the government, but they're safe, quote, is supply case constraints and emissions requirements. They even verbally padded the real reason, emissions requirements. That's why they can't have a Ford Edge. If the Ford Edge didn't, essentially for the Ford Edge to continue, most of the sales need to be hybrid or plug-in. Ford Escape, what are they delivering to dealers? Are they delivering full gas versions of the Escape? Essentially, no. There's, you have to specially order them basically for a customer. They will make them, but you have to ask for it. What are they carrying at dealer lots? Some hybrid, traditional hybrid. If you're in the last episode, we talked about what a traditional hybrid is. It's not plug-in. There's nothing to do. It's super easy. You push the button to start the vehicle. You drive it. When you let go of the accelerator, it recharges that 1.1 kilowatt battery. Now, a plug-in, though, often has a 12 to 20 kilowatt battery. On the Ford Wrangler, it's about an 18 kilowatt battery. On the Toyota RAV4, 18 kilowatt battery, 14.4 kilowatt battery on the front wheel drive Ford Escape. Even in my cold climate, they're selling really, really well. And sales for hybrids at Ford, way up at Toyota as well. Electric sales way down everywhere. BYD down 43 or 48%. Tesla, down. There's no longer any growth over at Tesla. But they need to spend a lot of money to turn the Edge into a plug-in. And then, if they spend that money, they need to make money back on their investment. And the factory in Oakville wouldn't be ready to, if they're making plug-in Escapes, they're not going to be in a position to also be making the new Ford Explorer EV. So the Ford Explorer EV project is not dead. But instead of being in 2025 that it comes out, it's going to come out in 2027. They're going to retool the factory, get it better, but a lot of people are going to pay. They're going to be in a bad position and not working. Now, some of those workers are going to be probably processed into working on retooling the factory, testing the factory, fixing, upgrading, modifying, but working on the prototypes, but for a good part. Because soon we're already going to have the Explorer EV, soon we'll have an escape-ish EV driving out on the roads, which is one of the big news here, is that Ford is now doing a full turnaround. It upsets me. Some channels presented this as Ford being so flip-floppy and insinuating that Jim Farley really didn't deserve that pay bonus of 28 million this year because, he's been all over the place and changes his mind all the time, which I really don't agree with that perspective. I'd say a very wise and smart man is always willing to change their mind based on if the data changes. I think it's stupid to make your opinion and then being fixed on it and being unwavering in your opinion. I loathe when politicians pick a point, make it their mission, but then are unwilling to listen to anyone else presenting different data, and really nowadays wanting to almost make it illegal or destroy people for presenting different information. On that note, I will share that if on this platform I talk about the war, and talk about it as, possibly like, hey, let's talk about, what were CIA agents doing in certain places, regions before a war broke out? What were labs doing in these regions? So if I talk about the war, essentially, my channel gets shut down. I've made over 1,000 videos. They all get shut down. Heck, I got a warning, almost a strike. You get 3 strikes, you're shut down forever. Everything closes. All my over 1,000 videos get deleted. And all I did was play Fox News commenting, explaining what the Florida Surgeon General said about a certain medication that you take through an injection. So I have to be careful. And I think it's awful because I think people don't learn. We learn from communicating with one another. We learn by saying, hey, this is my opinion based on this set of data. And hopefully the other person is listening. Because otherwise, what's the point of having a conversation? But then, after they listen, they share their information, and then you have a discussion about why do you have different, sometimes, why is our set of data different? And you can say, I didn't know about your set of data. Oh, you didn't know about my set of data? And you come to greater learning, greater growth. That's how you have growth in ideas and also growth in perspectives. You don't, if someone has foul views against certain groups of people, you don't make society better by saying, oh, well, you lose your job, go in the corner and don't ever talk again online, don't ever have another job, you're cut off, you're banned, or, this idea of, if you pray in public or read the Bible in public, it's a criminal offense. It's ridiculous. We can't be cutting off people's liberty of expression. And on that note, let's talk about the Ford news. I believe I just did a rant. I'm sorry, folks. We've covered the Ford news in regards to the plant shutting, but there's a lot of productivity, a lot of great things that are going to come out of this. Huge positive Ford changes that people are going to like. People weren't thrilled, other than the early adopters to the Mach-E and the F-150. When the price is high, you see that there isn't much interest. People aren't willing to spend, other than early adopters and the small percentage of people that are, in love and obsessed with electric vehicles. People aren't willing to spend a ton more money to have greater handling and greater acceleration, which honestly, often electric vehicles do offer. My F-150 Lightning has incredible, or I should say did. It's selling and it's gone come Wednesday. Bought it for $110,000 or leased it for $110,000. Didn't want to wait to the end of the lease and let Ford absorb that loss. Sold it for roughly $76,800. Well, sold it exactly for $76,800. So losing a lot of money. What is that, like $44,000? Losing a ton of money for 1 year of use, but I thought the channel would be much more interested in the F-150 Lightning. I thought that people would be, more enamored with electric vehicles. But guess what? If they're expensive, people aren't interested. And this is why Ford is completely changing their direction Not a huge fan of how some channels have been, making the joke that Ford changes their mind and has shocking news more often than, or as often as they change their underwear. Actually, I'd really like the joke, but I don't agree with that perspective as being a negative thing. I think that's a very positive thing. You have to follow the trends. You have to, as a leader, you have to kind of anticipate what's going to be coming down the road, like Toyota anticipating that electric vehicles weren't the ultimate solution, so they focused on hybrids and hydrogen. And now Ford is going to be focusing more on hybrids, and we're going to have a lot of very, very cool models coming. So let's cover that. Stick with us